Much for joining us again, Kushi. How are you today?
Good. Thank you, Sharon. Namaste, everybody. So nice to be with you all again. Welcome to our seventh in the series of the subtle body. And the final one, right? If you're joining, maybe this is the first time you're joining, I really recommend you go through and work systematically, right? One builds on the other. And we come to, right, really the true aim of life. And if you notice, all the yogic texts always start with what is the aim, what is the purpose? And that's kind of where we're ending today, right? Making our way up the ladder of yoga. So we'll start with an invocation, and I'm actually going to share it with you. You're welcome to chant along with me. It's one of my favorite chants. Today is a very special, I feel for me, it's very special because these are the topics, that is closest to my heart. So I feel like you all are very now much more closer to my heart in terms of the combination and the melding of the teachings of Patanjali and the yogic path and the teachings of the Buddha as well, right? This is part of my own personal path, and I'm so happy and grateful to be able to share it with you as part of what I practice in daily life, in yoga, in Vipassana meditation, right? So the invocation that we do today is called taking refuge in the triple gem. This is something we do in the Buddhist tradition. And it's about taking refuge in three aspects, right? The three gems of life. One is taking refuge in Buddha, and not the personhood of the Buddha, but the bodhi, the buddhi, the qualities of enlightenment, taking refuge in those qualities. May they grow within us. Taking refuge in Dhamma or Dharma, right? Which is the teachings that are passed down, the laws of nature itself. And then the third is taking refuge in the Sangha, right? All of you probably know this word, the Sangha, the community that we are in right now together, how we use the quality of connection between one another to uplift ourselves, to inspire, and to gain inspiration along the path. So, the idea of taking refuge is like, when you are caught in a storm and you stand under a mighty tree, the protection, the sustenance, the care, right, to weather the storms. And this is really this beautiful invocation. So you're welcome to join me. Right, whenever we chant, it's always starting with the connection to breath, starting with the connection to prana, the energetic force of the breath. Buddham sharanam gacchami, Dharmam sharanam gacchami, Buddham sharanam gacchami, Dharmam sharanam gacchami, Sangam sharanam gacchami. Sangam sharanam gacchami. Good. Namaskar, friends. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful journey with you all, and my favorite part has been meeting you all in the variety of ways in which you've shared and your enthusiasm throughout these 7 weeks, right? Today's topic is really about understanding who we are in the realm of our lives and why it is that we practice, right? Leading up from the previous 6 weeks has all been an invocation of prana. how to invoke that essence of life force, how to be inspired, right? I hope there is now an ease inside of you to connect with these texts. You can understand it's really not hard to connect with the text. It's really not hard or difficult to connect with the more ancient teachings of yoga, right? And it requires just a little bit of faith, understanding, and the transmission that happens between us. And that transmission starts to invoke this inspiration and this faith that is the foundation of the yoga practice. Before I begin, yesterday I this Buddhist teacher that I follow, this quote was just so incredible, and I really want to share it with you because it's so clear as to what we are doing, right, along the path. So much of the path is swimming against the stream. This refers to the reverse aspect of all forms of mind training. To investigate consensus reality reverses social norms. In a noisy and materialistic society, to sit down and remain still and quiet is a reverse activity. To devote even 1 hour a day to becoming nobody when we could be in the world becoming somebody reverses socially rewarding goals. To aspire that all sentient beings have happiness and be free from suffering runs counter to self-centered preoccupations. When we take a wide look at reverse, we can appreciate that the meaning runs much deeper than labeling a category of discrete exercises. It can become a foundational principle for guiding daily life situations. It can be used to cut through mindless behavioral loops and used for disrupting, to wake us up from our sleepwalking habits. And this quality of disruption, right? Mindful disruption, that's really what we are doing in yoga, right? To disrupt the way our natural or habit patterns of energy flows, disrupting and changing the way in which we move our bodies by disrupting the patterns of energy with asana, disrupting the quality of how we hold our body, how we hold our breath by focusing, localizing prana along the central line, the central channel, Shushumna, by using the bandhas, disrupting how we understand ourselves and how we understand our breath, disrupting the normal flow of the breath, quote, normal, by holding the breath, elongating the breath in all of our pranayama, the control of the breath, the restraint of the breath, right? The different practices that we do. All of these are disruptions in our normal, mindless, sleepwalking habit patterns, right? And that's really what we come to know, is that most of our life is sleepwalking, is conditioned by social norms that we do not question. Once we start practicing some level of inquiry, right? Whatever that inquiry looks like to you, could be yoga, could be something else, but a level of self-inquiry starts to disrupt, starts to change those habit patterns. And then eventually disrupting the mind itself, disrupting these loops, right? Causing a change to reverse the normal habit pattern of how our mind thinks, our habitual ways of reacting, right? And then that disruption begins to create a new way of life, the yogic lifestyle rather than the yoga class, right? The lifestyle begins to permeate into each and every action of what it is and who we are in this world. One of the, teachings of the Buddha is really about the rarity of a human birth. First of all, how rare it is that we get to be in this body. The Buddha has a saying where he's talking to many monks, and he says, imagine that this earth was covered with just endless ocean, no land. And in that ocean, floating on the ocean surface was a ring, a circular ring. And swimming in that vast ocean was a turtle, and not just any turtle, but a blind sea turtle. And every 100 years, that turtle would pop its head up to the surface of the water. the likelihood of that blind sea turtle, right, going up and having its head fit into this ring that's floating on the surface is the same as the likelihood of us even having this human birth, of even being born human, of even being born human, and not just being born human, but even getting a path to our own self-enlightenment, own inquiry itself. So to, when we start our practice, we take it for granted so much that we just have this. But how many billions of people are there who do not get the opportunity to practice, do not have the opportunity, the privilege to do what we do? And when we realize that, when we recognize how rare it is that we are on a path like this, in which we have the tools to eradicate our suffering, right, through our own self efforts, then there's a deep sense of reverence and gratitude can begin to grow in our hearts. So I really encourage you, like that metaphor, when you come to your mat, wow, or you come to your cushion, it's like the immensity of what it is that we are doing when we practice together. Today, right, is a mixture of many different things. We're going into the Upanishads, we're going into the teachings of the Buddha, we're going into teachings of Patanjali, right? Bringing across traditions, across timeline, the whole timeline of yoga begins to intersect. And we realize that there's no need for this vast separation that we do, right? The separation of traditions, the separations of the Upanishads from the Vedas, from the Tantras to the teachings of the Yoga Sutras, to the teachings of the Gita, which we will also study today, to the teachings of the Buddha, that everything can come together in a cohesive and holistic way, just like all the harmonious parts of our own body, mind, and spirit come together when we practice, right, these disruptive mechanisms of yoga, pranayama, meditation. We'll start with the Isha Upanishad. Isha Upanishad is a wonderful little Upanishad, right? 18 verses, very tiny, very small. And it's really I can say, the blueprint for the Bhagavad Gita. So some of you might be big fans of the Gita, right? And this conversation between Krishna and Arjun, how they come upon this battlefield and the questioning of one's dharma. What is that dharma? Right? The Isha Upanishad is a very poetic blueprint for that larger question, right? So for those of you who are drawn to metaphor and poetry, I really want to siphon you towards the Upanishads. They really help to, have your own sense of contemplation and self-reflection. The Isha means the ruler, the master, the creator. In other words, the one who is deathless, right? Not subject to disease, decay, life, birth, right? And ultimate demise and death, otherwise known in the Yoga Sutras as Brahman or Purusha, right? All of these, or Ishvara in the Yoga Sutras, right? All of these are different qualities, different names for this Isha. And the Isha Upanishad talks about this philosophy of nishkama karma, the non-attachment, right? So for many of you who've studied the Gita, you know this vairagya, or the quality of doing one's actions without attachment. Easier said than done, right? But the Isha Upanishads lays out this metaphoric path of how to do that, of what it means to be the deathless within oneself, right? Not through, right, renunciation of actions in the world, but by doing the actions, but with a different quality of mind. And the only way to get there is through meditation, right? The yoga practice, the asana practice leads us to a preparation ground for finally the quality of renunciation. What does the renunciation truly mean for the actions that we are committed to in the world itself? And most importantly, right, the last verse of the Isha Upanishad is this call to action, this deep reverential prayer that may I always be faithful to my aim of life. What is the main aim of my life? And can I always, as much as possible, like a mantra, hold it totally in the front of my being, right? For everything that I'm doing, so that all other actions are informed by that one aim of life itself, right? So that we can move towards the sense of what it means to be a liberated being. What does it mean to have a sense of a path that leads in that direction, right? In the midst of the push and pull of a very, disruptive society, a very, engaging society for our senses that is always pulling us outwards, and why meditation must and always is and always will be the answer, right? So this lecture series, finally ends in this call to action for all yoga teachers and students to start invoking a meditation practice. Very, very, very important to gain an understanding of these questions for ourselves, to to live these answers for ourselves, right? Through the contemplation that comes only through meditation, right? When we fully remove our senses from the body, from the external world. And how rare and fortunate that practice is, and how fortunate we are to even be sitting here together in this community to study these words itself. Another Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, has a beautiful, saying that we are what our deep driving desire is. As our deep driving desire is, so is our will. As our will is, so is our deed. And as our deed is, so is our destiny. So the ultimate, the deepest desire is leading to your destiny. And what is your destiny? What you are meant to do in this world, right? So many of us never have the chance to even know what is our deepest driving desire, right? That's what we really need to connect with in our meditation practice. When we know what our deepest driving desire is, then we can begin to take the steps to shape our destiny, right? In the yogic text, it said that yogis are not, they're not subject to the push and pull of even the planets, even the movement of the stars, even the movement of the suns. They are masters of their own destiny because they are masters of their own mind, right? So the question comes, what is dharma? What is karma, right? They are deeply intertwined and intersecting beings. Your dharma, right, can be the set of laws or moral code or ethics that you find yourself shaping your life around. It can be your aim, your main duty in life itself. Dharma is also related to absolute truth. What is the truth of this universe? What are the laws of nature itself, right? Everything that is governing the push and pull of this whole world. For example, the dharma of the sun is to give light, right? The dharma of the wind is to blow. The dharma of the breath is to bring in the life energy, right? That is the reason for being, right? So what is this reason for being? Very important, right? To know this and to get close. Even if you don't know, if you don't hit the bullseye, you have these practices to get you close, because dharma is a very confusing topic for many people. What is my purpose? What is the meaning of life? What am I supposed to do, right? And seeking answers always from others. What to do, what to do, what to do. When, if we close our eyes and just take a few moments daily, remember, It's the continuous, daily, dedicated effort that brings us closer to the target of knowing what is the reason for my being. And what are the actions then, your karma, that lead me there, right? So karma is the actions and also the fruits of the actions. So this might be a little confusing for many people, right? It's what you do and then what you get from what you do, right? So every action that you take has an equal and opposite reaction. And whatever that reaction is also the karma. It's the actions and the fruits, right? And this is a very important topic in the Bhagavad Gita, right? What are the karmas? What is karma yoga? What is it to live according to one's dharma? And how do these two support one another, right? That they are very much the two things that go hand in hand in our life, in our practice. In yoga, in the starting of so many texts, so many yogic texts, it's really very clear that we have one dharma, to be free from all sufferings. All human beings have one true dharma. The deepest, deepest, deepest desire of all of our hearts is to be free from suffering, right? And all other dharmas, all other activities, all other actions that we do in this world support this one dharma. So I just want you to take a moment, right? Maybe you have a pen and paper, and answer this question at the bottom, please. What activities in your life currently support this one true dharma? You can close your eyes and just contemplate for a minute. And these are activities that can span beyond your practice of yoga, of course, to be free from all suffering. To be awake and not sleepwalk, to disrupt this cycle of sleepwalking through life. Good. Right? And then just keep that for yourself. These are very important to know, that what are the forces that support me in this fundamental aim of human life. In the Buddhist tradition, this is known as the Four Noble Truths, right? That all is sorrowful, that everything in this world is impermanent. That is what it's meant by sorrowful, because when we try to hold it, it doesn't stay. When we try to run after it, it runs away, right? And that no matter how much we try to grasp or cling, that nothing has any substance. Eventually, everything comes and goes. And in knowing that truth, that all things come and go, which is a dharma, which is the fundamental, right, law of nature, that all things are impermanent in this world. That is what's meant by perfect rapture, to know that truth, to know it from the deepest level of one's being, right? Through an experiential wisdom, to have lived that, to have grasped for things and not gotten what you wanted, to hate things and have them persist, right? All of that push and pull of life drains us, exhausts us. And in that level of deep exhaustion, we come to oftentimes an understanding of these truths for ourselves. One, dukkha, that suffering exists. We must accept this truth. It is true, right? Samudaya, there's a cause to suffering. There's a root cause, which we'll go into, the root causes of our sufferings for being in this world. Nirodha, that there is a way that suffering can cease. And magga or marga, there is a path leading to the end of suffering. Now, if just the first three were there, life would be a very depressing reality. But all of the teachings that we embark upon say, yes, there is suffering. These are the causes of suffering. It's possible to root out these causes of suffering. And hey, there's a path. There's a systematic way to root out the causes of all of our suffering to lead to the end of suffering. Not to the end of our experiences in this world, not to the end of our full, active, present-minded engagement with the world, right? But to the end of this cycle of constant like and dislike, constant craving and aversion that builds and cements this constant suffering that we find ourselves in, right? To break that loop, to disrupt that loop is possible. And the way it is possible is through the contemplation of yoga as it applies to you, right? So there are so many definitions of what is yoga, right? In the Gita, it says that equanimity is yoga. Equanimity, balance of mind, right? Not to move too much in one stream, not to move too much in the other stream, right? So that we sit, right? Remember last time we talked about the 8 worldly winds, right? The dvandvas, the constant push and pull of duality of this world, that we learn to sit in the middle and hold both dualities within ourselves, right? Not to deny duality, right? Not to deny that this world has these pairs of opposites, but to know them, to recognize them as they come up within ourselves. And when we have that sense of self-recognition of our own reactive patterns to what we crave, what we cling to, what we attach to, right? That recognition begins to loosen the binds, right? That really knot our own hearts and minds. The Bhagavad Gita and subsequent sutras says that yoga is skill in action. Many of you know this, right? That karma yoga, right? That quality of skill in action, knowing how to act, when to act, and when not to act, right? And this quality of knowing when to act, how to act, and when not to act is informed by our buddhi, is informed by the level of depth we have in engagement with our own intuition, with our own wisdom body. And how, step by step, parts 1 through 6, we start to engage with the fundamental force, prana, that leads us towards buddhi and that informs skill in action. Right? And these 3 paths, the ways of being in this world, bhakti, jnana, and karma. Bhakti yogi, the deep devotion, Ishvara pranidhana, the deep devotion that we invoke in our heart. Jnana, what we do here together right now, every week we've been doing this, engaging in study, engaging in this intellectual discourse that is rooted in bhakti, right? They're not separate paths. Please don't see them as I have to follow this path or this path or this path. They are intersectional, right? They come together. Everything in yoga is a harmonization of many disparate forces, right? And karma are the way in which we engage with the world and our actions in the world. Right? My teacher has a beautiful way of explaining this, right? That when I interact with the world and my students and everything around me, I'm a karma yogi. When I'm teaching, I'm jnana yogi. And when I'm alone in the depths of my being, I'm a bhakti yogi, right? I just love this so much because it speaks to almost like the koshas, the sheaths, right? In the deepest part of your being, right? In the deepest depths, when you are alone with yourself, right? Can we invoke that sense of pure devotion? When we are with our students or when we are engaging in this discourse, sharing information. Remember, this is one of the actions of the Muladhara chakra, to share knowledge, right? This information sharing, that knowledge in the hope that knowledge transforms into wisdom. And then in all of our actions, in the myriad of actions that we have to perform in the world with our families, our friends, our work life, right? Everything that we do, our livelihood, right? Karma yogi, to be in the act of action that is informed by this wisdom that is held in the base of bhakti, of devotion. And you'll notice that if you perform your actions with bhakti, with deep love, they do not tire you out. If you do not perform them with bhakti, right, you feel exhausted at the end of the day. So having that sense, that level of connection with yourself through meditative practices to enhance your own heart, to enhance that connection of bhakti within yourself. In the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, right, yoga is samadhi, the cessation of the activity, of the constant activity, the constant rotation of the mind and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts that waste so much energy, right? That union, right, that we know of is about cessation, actually. Nirodha, to retreat, right? To enter our own personal retreat center, in the center of our hearts, in the center of our minds, wherever your own personal retreat center. Right now, you can't go anywhere, but at least you can develop that sense of, your own cave within yourself, so that you can learn how to slowly quiet the mind and be in the spaces in between, to be able to listen to the very quiet voice of your own inner self. This is called, I would say, the triangle of life, right? What do we do as human beings? And how do we succeed in our path of yoga? So I don't know, maybe some of you have been like me, where you went very intensely in the beginning, only towards this pinnacle of the inner being, and just forgot all about the other stuff, right? And was so one-pointed, right? But then by not fulfilling the practical demands of life, right, the path becomes lopsided, right? It's like a, three-legged stool. All the legs have to be very firm to hold the weight of whatever it is, the world, the world body that we find ourselves in, right? And then to know that there's a bit of, maturity that comes in our practice when we realize that we have to fulfill all of these pinnacles, that each one is equally important. Our inner life, the demands of our practical life, the demands and needs of our body, and the forces of nature around us, right? To balance all of these things equally is what's known as yoga, right? It's like, someone can be a genius, but their physical body is not strong, it's not weak, right? You need to have that sense of strength in all forms, in all aspects, to have skill in action, to be a karma yogi, to be a bhakti yogi, to be a jnana yogi, and ultimately to fulfill that fundamental aim of life, which is to be free from all sufferings. To be free from all sufferings means absolute full engagement with this triangle of life, to give fully to all aspects of who you are, and to understand that as human beings, we cannot deny, we are social creatures, we cannot deny one for the other. Of course, there are moments in your life where you devote more to your inner being. There are moments of your life where you devote more to the care of your body, more to the understanding of nature, more to the practical demands of your family and livelihood. But all three held together in equal value, right? That the inner being, the inner life is not of more or less value. It's equally important for you to be successful as a practitioner of yoga. And when we come into the concept of karma, right? So this is a very confusing, I feel, topic for many students. What is karma, and how are we changing our karma, or what is the movement of karma in the flow of our lives? There are three types of karma. that inform this triangle of life, right? One is called Sanchita Karma, Prarabdha Karma, and Kriyamana Karma. The Kriyamana Karma, if you see, is the karma that has already happened. It's already taken flight, it's hit the aim, the action is done. There's nothing we can do now except reap the fruits of that action, right? Someone has said something to you and you've responded in anger, and now it's all in its own flow, right? The reaction is coming back to you, right? There's nothing that we can do at that point. And yoga says that is the karma, that karma we are not concerned with. We cannot do anything about that. It's already in motion. Prarabdha karma, the karma that's about to take flight, right? Someone has said something to you, you are about to react. You catch yourself, right? That moment of catching yourself, right? That moment is so precious, so important to catch yourself in that essence, the push of all of your habit patterns that are telling you to react strongly, right? That wave that comes through you, a fire, pure fire that wants to come out, yet you're able to hold steady, right? That is what the yoga practice gives you, the strength to hold steady when and disrupt, right, that habit pattern of wanting to react and push out and really feed the fire, which just ends up destroying both parties involved, right? So that karma, prarabdha karma, is where we can really start. That's what's happening in the present moment. Prarabdha karma is in the present moment. When I'm talking, I'm creating karma. I'm creating prarabdha karma. It's happening in the moment. That's where the meditation practice helps us, because it brings our mind from scattered directions to awareness of the present moment, to awareness of the karma, the actions that we are doing right now in this moment, and to understand, is this action punya or apunya? Is it virtuous or non-virtuous, right? And to have our mind fully engaged in that process, that means all aspects of the mind, including the buddhi, to really examine what we are doing in the moment. And then in the background, we have our sanchita karma. This is the storehouse, all the karmas that are stored, right? All the habit patterns, all the seeds, the potentials that can come up at any moment, right? Any potential can happen depending on external circumstances and depending on internal circumstances. There are certain, situations that have to be placed so that jealousy can arise, so that anger can arise, so that joy can arise, right? So creating that foundation, what we'll find is through the yoga practice, we try to create a positive foundation for positive punya, right? Positive karmas to arise. And as we do that, the positive karmas that arise are ones that then feed positive actions, positive fruits, right? So all of this is how we start to practice through the meditative practices, the understanding of this karmic cycle of cause and reaction, cause and reaction, cause and reaction, right? And then, what are the root causes? What are the types of karmas? What are the types of things that we store in our sanchita karma? What is their makeup? And for many of you who've studied the Yoga Sutras, you know that these are called the kleshas, right? So the kleshas are all of these obstacles, right? It's like dust on the mirror, right? That prevent us from seeing clearly the situation in front of us, the present moment in front of us, that which draws us to suffering, right? Also known as the veils, right? Or obstacles, afflictions. And these 5 kleshas, avidya, ignorance, asmita, clinging to the I or the nature of I, right? Like in the first quote we read, that everything in this world is telling us to build I. Every single action, every single story, every single person, every single way of life is about promoting I, is about strengthening I, right? And so no wonder asmita is so difficult right now because all actions in the world are against the dissolution of I, or the weakening of this ahankara, craving, raga, right? All of our likes and our attachments, and dvesha, aversion to the things that we don't want in our life, that we don't want to happen, or that we don't want to have. And then avinivesha, the fear of death itself, right? Not understanding that everything in this world, again, is impermanent. The law of nature, the law of impermanence, that one day this body will decompose. And then where's the asana, right? One day there won't be the potential to move the body in the way that we maybe did in our youth or younger years. Or maybe some people never are able to even move their body in the asanas. So how to reconcile that not everything is body bound, right? That there's an aspect of ourselves that can begin to contemplate and can begin to understand freedom, right? Through the mind-born practices, right? The meditative practices. And then by invoking these meditative practices, we begin to understand what truly purification is. At the very fundamental level, the first level, the yoga, the asana pranayama is all about the regulation of our nervous system, the regulation of and balancing the homeostasis and allostasis of our systems, right? Or stress relief. As we start to practice more, we go into the next level, which is healing, right? Healing on a physical level, healing on emotional level, healing on a spiritual level. And then at the deepest level is purification, right? So if you read the text, they're always all about the deepest level, which is purification of the mind itself, or the samskaras. Samskaras are another word for the combination of karmas, the combination of these deep, deep, deep instinctual drives, the ways in which you react again and again and again, right? That are unique to you, unique to your ahankara, and unique to who you are in this world, right? And then the practice, that pratyahara, that withdrawal of our senses, leads us to the engagement with what's known as the latent mind, or the chitta, the storehouse, where all of these samskaras are stored, right? All of the things that can and one day will take flight, right? To be able to see them, to be able to access them through our meditative practices, right? Another word for this is karmashya. Karmashya is the storehouse of all of our karmas. It's like your attic or your basement, if you have one. It's like everything when you open the door and you just go, ooh, and you just close the door again, right? That's a lot of what the meditation practice is like. Sometimes when we open the door, it's quite overwhelming how agitated our mind is. It's quite overwhelming, right? How much we have stored. And this is why when we go towards meditative practices, many people run the other way, right? And that running the other way is, ultimately just a temporary solution. That there is a need for us to, at one point in our life, in our practice, if you are a yoga practitioner, to fulfill that calling of your life to be free from all sufferings and to engage in a meditation practice. And to engage in that meditation practice takes us to the understanding of this antahakarana, the understanding that there are two aspects of our minds, the lower mind and the higher mind, right? Like two birds sitting on, there's a metaphor in the Upanishads, two birds sitting on a tree, one observing the lower bird who's, eating and squawking and talking, and the other one is just the observation, the witnessing mind, or the buddhi, the one who is present for all experiences in your life. And how, when we meditate, we begin to understand their relationship. There is a relationship. The problem is we've given full power, full steam to this manas, the constant engagement with our senses, in and out, in and out, in and out. And that there is another aspect of our mind that we can also engage with. And so when we meditate, we begin to understand that there is this constant give and take that is happening between the buddhi and the manas, right? That is informed by external stimuli, internal stimuli in the form of your samskaras, your habit patterns. When you close your eyes, a memory might come up. When you close your eyes, you have a deep desire to achieve something. Those are all samskaras, some very weak, some very strong, right? Some are like lines drawn in water. Others are like, chiseling a line into a stone that will stay for eons, right? And you know which ones which ones fade away very quickly, and which ones are very tough, very strong, and deeply rooted within your own chitta. So how to purify our karmas, right? How to purify this storehouse? And it's very clear. The answer is very clear. It's just a matter of doing it, right? It's just a matter of understanding that when we meditate, right? This is a Yoga Sutra quote. Meditation on intuition engenders knowledge about each and everything. Meditation on intuition, meditation on the aspect, the antakarana, the aspect of our mind, the dual nature of our mind, not the singular nature of interaction in the world, but that the mind has a capacity to witness. And when we recede and create space for the witnessing mind, even if it's just for a moment, I'm not talking about half an hour of a silent mind, I'm talking about one powerful moment of you knowing that there is a witness, of you experiencing that witness. That one moment is so powerful that it casts light across all ignorance that is rooted, that ties us, that binds us. It's like taking, a sword and just cutting the root, one swift cut. And it's really that moment that's powerful, not the length of time, right? And being with that one moment engenders knowledge about everything. What is everything? All aspects of who we are, all aspects of our habit patterns, all aspects of this triangle of life, what to do and how to manage this triangle of life, right? So that we can be a sadhak or sadhika, one who is in the process of sadhana, the spiritual practice, right? Which has the power to carry you to that aim of life itself by remembrance of this Isha, right? Remembrance of this sense of devotion, right? To this aspect of yourself and the laws of nature, which gives you tremendous power and strength, also known as courage, right? A very important prerequisite and part of the path is engendering courage within yourself. 2, remembrance of your own duty to make sure that you are fulfilling what you need to in your daily life. And then remembrance that this body is perishable, that it is impermanent, remembrance of death itself, right? That constant reminder of the fact that one day this body will go, right? And that is the fleeting nature of our attachments. And if anything in this past year through the pandemic, I think this third one has been very pronounced, right? Remembering that we do not have control over each and everything in this world, that there are forces that can take away, right, things from us so quickly, so swiftly. And that understanding that those things are not ours to hold anyways. They come and they go. So this is a quote by Swami Rama, who's one of my, sorry, there we go. One of my, I can say, favorite, people to read and can reflect on. This life is like a manuscript which has lost its pages, right? The beginning and the end. One who seeks to find these pages is called a philosopher, and the search is called philosophy, right? And this is really what we're doing. We do not know how we got here. We do not know what happens when we leave here. to understand this reality of life, that there is a big question mark in the very beginning and a big question mark in the very end, right? To hold the questions, to hold space for the mystery and the questions. That is philosophy, right? That is our search. That is our sadhana. That is what we are seeking in life itself, right? And this is a very important part of our practice, is to be with the unknown, right? Not to answer every question of life, but to leave space, to leave a gap for what we do not know, right? And when we leave that gap for what we do not know, we are then put in touch with something that is beyond our surface level mind, something that is a deeper reality, the deep dharma of life, the essence of life itself, right? That is done through our, again, quiet contemplation of understanding of our own life force itself. So that's pretty much what I have for today. And, again, it's a call to action for all of you from my side, to engage in a meditation practice, to fulfill, your right as a yoga practitioner, to fulfill that, and to not get lost and bound, right, by one specific way of being in the yoga practice itself, but to work and move your way through the limbs of yoga in a very active way, in a very inspired way, to know what is my aim, what is the fundamental aim of human life. And for me specifically, as a human being in this body, in this historical timeline that I find myself in, what are all of the actions that support this one aim? Can I give importance to that? Can I name them? Can I know them, right? And as you name them, as you know them, you find yourself moving closer and closer and closer to the target. So, my friends, as promised, I gave you, many of you have been asking for a book list. So if you want to read more, these are my recommendations, right? The Upanishads by Eknath Easwaran. These are all of the Upanishads. My only, we can say, quibble with this is that there's the Sanskrit is not there. Right. So I like when I have the Devanagari, I have the transliteration and the translation. So but the translations are beautiful, and they're very poetic and very accessible to the modern mind. The language is very, very understandable for many people. And it's a way for you, if you've enjoyed this series and you've enjoyed the process of, learning little pieces and portions of the Upanishads, then I highly recommend you study Eknath Easwaran's works, and not just Upanishads, but Bhagavad Gita. He also wrote on the Dhammapada, which are the teachings of the Buddha as well. So this trinity of the three are fabulous. Another one by one of my teachers, Pandit Rajmani Tigunayat, Vishoka Meditation, that came out last year. Excellent, excellent, excellent manual on meditation. Very short, but very profound in the mixture and understanding of the teachings of Patanjali and the Buddha, and how they're so interrelated for that aim of life, to come out of all of our sufferings. For those of you interested in these pranayama practices, Swami Rama's Path of Fire and Light, volumes 1 and 2 they build upon each other. Very excellent way to learn a little bit more about this power of prana and our potential within ourselves in practicing pranayama. And if you love stories, I love this book, Old Path, White Clouds by Thich Nhat Hanh, The Stories of the Buddha. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful depictions and very heartfelt moments of the Buddha's life that give immense inspiration. For me, as my own personal practice, I love to read stories, and I love to read stories of people on the path, right? Wherever they are on the path, because I love to engage with everyone's journey and the trials and tribulations that are not unique to them, but unique to all human beings. All human beings experience, these aspects and these pitfalls and these moments of despair and the moments of then inspiration, right? It's a common trend, a common theme. The more you read these biographies, autobiographies, the more you understand that we are all on the same path, right? And that potential is existent, that seed of potential, that seed of the Buddha nature of the mind, the seed of enlightenment is present within each and every being on this planet. It's not special. What's special is those who embark upon, creating the foundation, creating and cultivating the fertile soil for that seed to grow. That's what's special. Next is Living with the Himalayan Masters, Swami Rama, a wonderful depiction of Swami Rama's childhood in the Himalayas, growing up with different teachers across different traditions and stories again. And Yoga for the Three Stages of Life, another one of my teachers, Srivatsa Ramaswamy, how to teach yoga for people of different stages in their life and what that means, right? We talked about this last week. When you're in your youth, when you're in your middle age, when you're in the elder years, what is it that you engage with? If you're pregnant, if you are, postmenopausal, all of these things, the different aspects of the stages and the life course, and how to adapt the practice in that way. So, my friends, that's all I have. If you want to contact me, these are all my contact ways and ways in which you can engage with me on the website. But like I said last week, good if you take some time to integrate this material before you jump into the next course. But if there's anything I do encourage you to jump into, it's more pranayama and more meditation, and you're welcome to engage with me in any of these ways. And my friend and I are working on a course on the Upanishads, and whenever that's cooked, that will come your way. So let's do some practice, maybe a few minutes for some questions, Sharon, and then I would like to do a practice if we have some time. So let's see if there
Yeah, we have a lot of really good questions here. Let's see. Scroll all the way back up. Nicole would like to know, I'm not sure how to ask this properly. Is it better better to frame our mind to strive for freedom of all suffering or dharma, or is it easier to accept the fact that suffering just exists like dukkha? For example, I feel like it helped me to frame my mind for non-attachment, that everything comes and goes. Is this the same way I should think about suffering? So maybe I'm not so disrupted when suffering comes my way?
That's such a great question. It's a fundamental question. I think it's very important. First step is to acceptance that all suffering exists. Suffering exists in this world. And no matter what, it will exist and will always be present to the human condition, human experience. Once we accept that, then your follow-up questions will be answered. How do I relate to that? How do I understand that? Is it through non-attachment? Is it through understanding of impermanence? Is it through orienting my life around this highest aim of life and fulfilling that dharma, right? That acceptance is fundamental for yoga practitioners. It's very important that we accept that. And when we accept that, the path then reveals itself. When we don't accept that, one, we create more suffering for ourselves, of course, because we become very agitated by the state of the world. Accepting it doesn't mean non-action, right? Accepting it means seeing it for what it is, and then that skillful action will come after that.
Awesome. The Buddhist that you quoted early on in your presentation, is that the same S.N. Gonka?
No, that's a
Okay.
teacher. But there's Goenkaji is one. There's so many Buddhist teachers, so you can engage with whoever you like. But
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, Alyssa wanted to see that quote or know who that came from again, because I think it it might have
I think
inspired her to
it's
go look into it.
Mingyur Rinpoche. So I think the name was on it here. I'll share it again for you guys.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, we can. mean, you're in.
Oh, perfect. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Maria wants to know, are we ever truly free of suffering, or are we just more able to rise above it, like appreciate the teachings of it, to observe and know that it is that even this suffering will pass?
Yeah, exactly. Got it. That's really, it's, there's no freedom from actual suffering. It's existent, but it's just our relationship to it. It's just our engagement with understanding what it is. That's what's called the lotus rising above the muck.
Yes. No mud, no lotus. How Charity wants to know, how can we enhance our intuitive, energetic body to move towards positive karma?
Yeah, so the pranayama is a wonderful way to do that. Um, Pranayama is like a lightning bolt of prana, right? So the pranayama practices give a lot more of prana in a very short amount of time. If you do 24 hours of asana, within just half an hour of pranayama, you can get that intensity of the pranic concentration that you then apply to your meditation and intuitive capacity. But you cannot have a strong pranayama practice without a strong spine. So
Mm.
be sure that you do the asana to strengthen your spine.
Yes, and karma is probably needs its own series, all on its own. But
Oh, yeah, that's so confusing. Oh my
yeah, Charity had a few follow-up questions. Also, can you speak on how we can redirect negative karma, either coming from our own actions or the actions of others? What types of karma do we share as a collective?
God.
And moreover, she wants to know, if somebody were to offend you, is
Mm.
it our responsibility to not retaliate, but to seek the highest form of positive karma for both oneself and the one who offends?
Yeah, so retaliation is a very interesting word. Retaliation is about the essence of the emotion, what you carry with what you say in response. So I can say the same thing full of hatred or full of love and wisdom, right? So, but it can have an equally powerful effect, right? So, the moment that you are retaliating or want to respond, it's always good to take a pause, right? That's where you wait just a moment to reconnect with your breath, to reconnect with the intense sensations, first of all, that are happening in your body because someone has insulted you, someone has said something or has angered you. So to take a moment to feel the storm brewing inside of yourself, right? And then that feeling begins to dissipate those sensations. Just knowing that you're present to that moment begins to dissipate that those intensity of the sankharas, the samskaras that want to come up and punch the other person, right? So instead of punching the other person, maybe you have a moment where you can educate or say what you need to in retaliation. So retaliation, right, never with fire, right? Fire and fire just create more destruction, but you can still educate in a very strong way. It doesn't mean your words don't have to be strong, but what is the root? Where is the root of that coming from? That's important.
Mm. Oh.
Okay, maybe one more question and we do a practice.
Yeah, just looking at a few others here.
If there's anything else. I mean, if you have questions, of course, just email me or, whatever. I'm happy to answer. Don't want to leave you guys hanging if I can answer.
Yeah.
Most of them I can't.
Donna had an interesting question. She said, ahamkara, it's a scrubbing of the ego. So I wonder if we can use it to get rid of negative karma.
I'm not understanding the question.
Yeah, scrubbing of the ego, I guess. Is that something that you can do, like purify your ego, or does ego have
Has
its own place? Yeah.
Yeah, you need your ego. If you're egoless, then I mean, your ego is like I have an ego. I have a persona that comes across to you. However you view me, that's my unique constitution. That's my ego. It's a very important, necessary part of just being in the world. It's not bad. Ego is not
Mm.
bad. It's just when the ego becomes obsessed with attachment and aversion. That's when
Mm.
it starts to go a little haywire, right? Like we read in the first quote, right? Disrupting all the norms of grasping for, right? Power, fame, money, right? All of those things are necessary for life, but it's just when they start to rule over us that it becomes, suffering. Because we want to acquire.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's a really quick one. I think
Okay.
this is a great question too.
Mhm.
What do you recommend as pratyahara practice?
Yeah, pratyahara can be anything from shavasana. So the yoga nidra practices are all pratyahara. So shavasana leads to yoga nidra. So if you do a longer shavasana into yoga nidra, that's all pratyahara practices. Another practice that we do after pranayama is Shanmukhi Mudra, where you close the sense doors. So you plug the ears, close the eyes, nostrils, mouth. So after you do your pranayama, you just close. It's literally closing the sense doors in your face, right? And then by closing the sense doors, you're drawn into the inner sound, the nada, the inner sound of your own breath.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think we're ready for
Okay,
your
let's do a
practice.
practice.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to start actually, if you wouldn't mind, if you could sit in Gomukhasana, which is cow face pose, right? If you can sit in Gomukhasana, if you cannot sit in Gomukhasana, and if you can, it's the full Gomukhasana. Otherwise, you sit cross-legged or in a chair, wherever you are. Whichever knee is more comfortable up top. Good. If you're sitting cross-legged or in a chair, you just take your hands face down on the lap, please. If you're in Gomukhasana, you take your palms across the soles of the feet. So you press your heels into the arches of the feet, right? Closing this feedback loop of your body by connecting hands to feet. Good. Now bring the chin into Jalandhara Baddha, which is the slight chin lock by drawing the chin back and up. So you feel the slight tugging at the base of the skull, right? That just indicating that your vertebrae are in good alignment. Right, like we did in pranayama practice last week. First step is samavriti, even inhale, even exhale, close your eyes. Begin to feel the depth of your breath in your body. And then start practicing a little bit of Ujjayi Pranayama. So
What?
slight,
Not on camera. What do you need?
slight constriction. Sorry, Sarah. Slight constriction in the throat so that you can feel and listen to the sound of the breath. That sound will then begin to indicate to you again the quality of your breathing, whether you're holding your breath, whether your breath is bumping along the way. Good. Now, if you have high blood pressure, if you're on your cycle, if you're pregnant, or any sort of glaucoma, you won't be doing the pranayama. You'll just instead do this Ujjayi pranayama, but begin to lengthen your exhalations to double the inhalations if it happens in an easeful way. Otherwise, the rest of us can start with Bhastrika, or your breath of fire, bellows breath. So what we'll do is 1 minute of Bhastrika in your Gomukhasana or in your seated position. So if you remember, bellows breath is forceful inhalation, forceful exhalation. Instead of focusing though at the abdomen, even if you're doing Ujjayi, begin to bring your mind, your awareness to the soft palate area and the striking of the breath there in a soft way in Ujjayi or in a strong way in Bhastrika. The soft palate is the pathway to the center of the head. So we'll start 1 minute. If it's your breathing becomes arrhythmic, good to stop and just practice Ujjayi, please. Inhale together. And then exhale forcefully to begin. Relax on the exhalation. Relax on the inhalation. Again, breathing Ujjayi. This time we'll do one more round. But at the end of our 1 minute of Bhastrika, we'll inhale smoothly and hold the breath retention, and feel the breath, the pranic energy at the roof of the mouth, at the soft palate, right? When you hold the breath, it's just feeling the lightness. The hold is at the soft palate, not in the chest. Like when you breathe in to jump into a lake or a river, right? You hold in the chest. This is just a very light, effervescent hold at the roof of the mouth. Good. So let's try one more time. Exhale for Bhastrika. Relax, exhale all the breath out. Slowly inhale, even if you're just doing Ujjayi, slowly inhale. Light hold at the roof of the mouth. Draw your mind inward to the center of the head. Relax the face. See if you can feel the pulsation of prana in the center of the head. Good. Whenever you need to, exhale all the breath out. Keep your mind deep now in the center of the head and just follow the breath in and out from the center of the head. This is a practice preliminary towards prana dharana, which is dharan, focus, a meditation, a concentration on prana itself. Sensitizing the mind's ability to feel the support of our buddhi, which is prana itself. Just follow the breath in and out of the nostrils, out into the world around you, and then inhaling up and into the center of the head, feeling how it touches the roof of the mouth. Good. Nice. Then your next breath in, following the breath into the center of the eyebrows, deep into the center of the head, and just staying there in a very relaxed way. So you're not thinking about it, right? It's just a suspension of your mind deep in the Agya Chakra, center of the head. Meditation on intuition engenders knowledge of all things. And as you stay here, just see if you can come into the nature of the mind, antaha karana, the manas, the mind that is active, agitated, interactive, analytical. And then the foundation upon which it sits, the witnessing aspect of your mind. The more prana you have, the more energy, enthusiasm you have to observe your mind. And that is why the pranayama practices come before meditation. Just notice how right now engaging in this practice is a disruption of your normal habit patterns, and how no one likes to be disrupted. The mind enjoys its agitation. In this moment, seeking to stop its normal flows. By holding all aspects of the mind together. Good. And then slowly receding away from the center of the head, now down into Anahata Chakra, center of the heart, cave of the heart. In Vipassana, we always end with a prayer for all beings, metta or loving kindness. Bring your hands to Anjali Mudra. May all beings be safe. May all beings be protected. May all beings be happy and be free from all sufferings. May all beings be free from ignorance, delusion, and illusion of mind. Good. Dhanyavad, thank you so much. Opening your eyes when you're ready. Wish you all well on your journeys wherever you are. Take good care and please stay in touch. Thank you so much, Yoga Alliance, Sharon and Trisha, and everyone who's been supporting this series. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kushi. Thank you for this. Thank you for every last part of this series. I do hope that everyone who has taken the time to join us today and before will visit Kushi's website. There's a myriad of amazing workshops and her podcast. All of those things are available to you to continue these lovely conversations and studies with her. And if you have any questions, just shoot us an email. We're happy to assist you. Thank you so much, Kushi. This has been amazing. Such a pleasure. Such an honor to work with you.
Been wonderful for me. Very transformational for me too. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Namaste.
Bye bye. Bye everyone. Thank you. Namaskar.